As the new Hillsborough inquests continue to be heard in Warrington by Court of Appeal Judge Lord Justice Goldring, the families are reliving their losses once more as the people who passed away are remembered in a series of moving portraits by those who knew them best. For those not fully conversant with the scale of the injustice and adversity the families have faced, a very crude summary would be as follows. The original inquests held in Sheffield were the longest running in British legal history, and they eventually concluded on March 18th, 1991. The jury returned a verdict of accidental death. They were not quashed until December 19th, 2012 by the then Lord Chief Justice on the instruction of Attorney General Dominic Grieve. Since that momentous day, hope is growing that the wrongs of the past can at last be addressed. Some modicum of peace can finally be delivered to the families of those who died, and that there may finally be justice for the 96. For this special podcast on the anniversary of the tragedy, we're really fortunate to be joined by Sheila Coleman, Tony Evans, who's football editor of the Times, and Charley Maloney, one of the organisers of Ireland Walks with the 96. Each of them has been good enough to give us a little chat about how the tragedy of Hillsborough impacted their lives, their own experience of the aftermath, and their hopes for the future of the campaign for justice. First up, Sheila Coleman of the Hillsborough Justice Campaign speaks to us about how the families have spent a quarter of a century searching for justice and truth. Sheila, you'll be a familiar face to many people in Ireland due to your prominence in the campaign for justice and your many visits over here to our shores. How have the events of the past few days left you feeling? It must be very emotionally draining to attend all these inquests, reliving your own loss and those of others that you've no doubt become close to over the years.
Well, yes, I mean, you know that kind of we can only speak about what's already been reported, but I'm quite happy to say around what is in the public domain. And today in particular, I've come from the court in Warrington today, where one of my closest friends and another justice campaigner who lots of people over in Ireland will know as Wrighty, Stephen Wright, gave an account about his brother Graham. And it was so poignant, I was sitting beside his father and the rest of his family, and Stephen was only 3 years older than Graham, and they grew up and they were very close together. And having a kind of an insight into Graham's life before Hillsborough was just so moving, it really was. And throughout these portraits being presented of families, it is actually so sad because, as you say, I've over the years I've got to know many families, and in some cases I feel as if I know the people who are dead, even though obviously I never met them.
Sure, yeah, and because it must be so real, the recreation of their lives over the last few days, and to hear all the little significant details that make a person, it must be, as you say, just very, very poignant.
Well, there was one woman today who was speaking about her son, who was a 14-year-old boy, and a presentation of him, he sounded a really lovely boy, and he was very strong about carrying a donor card, and she was able to say how many people had benefited from his death, and I found that really, really difficult, that she could be at that time, even though he'd requested it, that she was strong enough to carry out his wishes and allow his organs to be donated, providing life to other people. So powerful, very humbling as well.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. Sheila, there's something that keeps occurring to me. People talk about, what's happening here, and they talk, the word closure gets thrown around a lot, and people talk obviously about justice, but some people talk about it in a very glib way. I mean, the loss has been so great, the injustice has been so great over such a period of time, the vilification, all those years in the wilderness that, I've spoke to you before about. Can there ever be anything like a proper redress, do you think? Or what is going to be justice for yourself?
I think it's a really hard thing, and we get to ask that question a lot. What does justice mean to you? Because it's subjective, but there can never be a complete redress, because obviously nobody can ever give those bereaved families what they want, which are their dead children or their dead husbands back. Equally, no one can turn back the clock and take away those experiences from survivors who have suffered so much. So anything is damage limitation, but it's also, for me, I was asked this question last week, and I said, for me, justice is accountability and responsibility being held, and people being held accountable for what they did. And for me, it's not necessarily punitive, but it is, for me, it would be about going to the heart of our society and actually learning lessons and making our society a better place to live, that these things can't happen again, that what happened after Hillsborough and what happened to cause it and also the subsequent cover-up can't happen again. And I think that but that is me, and I didn't lose anyone at Hillsborough, and so I totally understand people who having lost people or people whose lives have been so tremendously damaged, having different views from me. It's okay for me taking a kind of, if you like, liberal view of justice, but that's easier to do when you haven't lost anyone. And as close as I am to it, I will never be as close as the bereaved or as the survivors.
Sure. So it is, as you say, it's going to be subjective for everybody, and will depend on how they perceive it and how they feel at any given time. But I suppose, as you make an interesting point there, what kind of tangible things do you think? You spoke about society moving on, learning lessons, and accountability, of course, is the key word here. How could that, do you think, Sheila, manifest itself so that people can, that people can look at this and say, okay, something good has finally happened here, and that we can see some sort of tangible benefit to the whole process?
Well, I think that the least the bereaved are entitled to is a positive legacy, and the legacy that out of their tragic deaths came a better society. So there needs to be a rigorous examination of the systems and structures of society which enabled a disaster like that to occur and then enabled a subsequent cover-up. And I think that is the legacy long term that could be left. And let's not forget, next Tuesday, we're talking about a quarter of a century. It's a hell of a long time for people to campaign and fight for justice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And that was actually in the next thing I was going to say to you, that phrase that really resonated with me, even just as I was thinking about what to say to you. A quarter of a century. It's a remarkable amount of time. And for so many of those years, Sheila, it's fair to say, isn't it, that, there was very little.
It says, I was asked about the nature of campaigning and how you can sustain a campaign for so long. And, I've reflected on it many times because, as I've previously said, there's been many dark years when there was very little happening. And what sustained people through those dark years? And I think it was that innate sense of right and wrong that good people have, and people knowing they had been wronged and their dead children and families had been wronged, and that had to be corrected, and that did sustain people. Having been at the inquest, what really moves me looking at families is their warmth for one another. And today, for example, when Stephen Wright was to give the account of his brother Graham, we were all there for him. And Stephen is just one of the loveliest people you'd ever meet, but is essentially so shy. And he said afterwards, he thanked everyone for being there for him, but we wouldn't have been anywhere else because we are like a family and we are so close. But that support for one another has been essential because without that support, I don't think people could have survived these years of campaigning. For sure.
And as you say, those dark years that you guys have put down and hopefully now are starting to overcome. Is there a feeling, Sheila, that maybe, is there a general feeling of positivity amongst people now who've been so involved and that things are actually going to happen? Because I know there must be wariness, but is there still that feeling of hope?
I think that it's a long way to go. It's sort of, the inquests are scheduled to last for a year, and that is to ascertain how the people died. They're not criminal proceedings. When the inquests are concluded, there is still the possibility of criminal proceedings. The deeper there are other investigations ongoing. So we are talking several years down the road. I think the main difference is the things, the frustration in the past was that people were saying things. Survivors who had been there on the day were saying things and were not believed. Now, there is the evidence, which was always there, but which was kept from us. That is now there. And also as well, there's much greater faith in the legal teams than last time. I know that our legal representation, we are very happy with that, and we feel we have people on board fighting our corner who have a reputation within their own profession for human rights issues. So we feel we have excellent people working for us and who seem to grasp just what people have been through over the years. So there are major differences. So families, although tired and battle-scarred from many years of fighting, nevertheless are going into something feeling it's fairer than last time, I suppose. There's a measure in which it is more open, and up to now that has been the case. Obviously, only time will tell as the inquests proceed, and then following on from the inquest, we just have to see what happens, because it's all out there. I do maintain, as a campaigning group, we need to keep the pressure on. No doubt about that. We seriously need to keep the pressure on in order to just continue to fight for truth and justice, which is all we've ever done from the beginning.
Sheila, we can only wish you the very, very best with what remains of the inquest and for the ongoing campaign, and thank you for your efforts on behalf of everybody who cares about the club and who cares about the people. Thanks very much for joining us this evening, Sheila.
Well, thank you, and good luck to everyone for the walk on Saturday. It means an awful lot, and I think it's a great symbol. And thanks to all who, I know I saw you the other week, but everyone who came out for the HJC tournament. We always remember our friends in Ireland, and you sustained us through the years, as I always say. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sheila. Next, we spoke to Tony Evans, who told us about the incredible work done by some journalists, which runs contrary to the beliefs of many people that the media have been completely and utterly against the campaign from minute one. He also told us that he was cautiously optimistic about what may happen in the future. Okay, Tony, as a prominent journalist for many years, how hard has it been to see the lies and the slander put forward in various sections of the media? And have you been able to use your own standing in any way to influence opinion, do you think, over the years?
I think you've got to balance how it was reported initially with some of the stuff that's been done since. I mean, you know, in many ways, it was as well as the families, it was people like Brian Reid and David Conn who've kept the whole issue in the public eye. And, you know, for as much negativity as some areas of journalism brought to the whole Hillsborough issue, you know what? There's been some brilliant stuff, some heroic stuff. You know, the number of people who, and especially it strikes me after the 20th anniversary, when it looked as if there was nowhere to go with this. You know, it looked as if we'd gone down a blind alley, and you know, Andy Burnham hadn't set up the independent panel yet. You know, people like Brian, people like David Conn, you know, and you know, and you know, and our paper, Tony Barrett, myself, you know what? We were desperate to keep this in the public eye. So yes, you know what? The thing is, people like Kelvin Mackenzie are not representative of what real journalism is, and they're not representative of what proper people in the business are doing. You know what? The most important thing in journalism is the quest for the truth and to tell people the truth. And Mackenzie and people like him, they perverted that. And you know what? In the end, the good people will win. In the end, the people who fought for right will win. The families will win. All those who were demeaned, all those whose names were blackened, you know, all those who they said we stole from the dead and things like that. In the end, we will come out. We will come out, and the truth will be out. And a large part of that is to do with some of the journalists who fought. People like Brian, who've never let it go for all those years.
Well, as you say, I mean, people like Brian Reid and David Conn, people like that, and people like yourself, clearly, it must have been extra hard in those dark days when there seemed to be nothing but vilification going on, and really people just wanted to brush it under the carpet and forget about it. It was brave. There was an element of bravery to keep putting those words on the page and to keep expressing that feeling of outrage at injustice.
I think one of the things which was the worst thing of all, really, for many of us, and I can't put myself in the category with with the people who fought for so long. I mean, I ran away from it for a long time. But the thing is, you talk to people and they'd look at you in the face, they'd look you in the eye and say, just admit it. You broke down the gates, admit it, you're all drunk. And you'd stand there. I'd always say the same thing to them. I'd say, when they talk about, I said, would you steal from the dead? And they go, no. And I'd say, would you urinate on police? And they go, no. I said, well, why would you think I would? Why in God's name would you think I would? And so that was the real frustrating thing about it, all the way through it. And it's and so it's the darkest time, I think, for me was after the 20th anniversary when it looked as if it had all gone flat, and it looked as if we wouldn't get another bite at the publicity until the 25th anniversary, and I couldn't imagine it turned so quickly. And when you look at how far we've come in the last 5 years, and thanks to Andy Burnham, thanks to the independent panel, but most of all thanks to the families who've hammered away at it. It's astonishing. And I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, we could actually get a resolution on this.
Yeah.
It's a long way off, but we could.
Well, you mentioned the comparatively incredible progress that's been made over the last even year or so, or since 2012 anyway, the Christmas 2012. With the inquest ongoing, how do you think the campaign to get justice or to get some sort of resolution, as you say yourself, for the families, how do you think it stands? And are you content that there is that momentum building now that will hopefully lead to something tangible?
Well, I think what's going to happen is the wealth of detail that's going to come out in the inquests is going to be so shocking and so appalling. I think that the British people will demand a resolution to this. They'll demand that those responsible for this breakdown of policing, be punished for it. I think they'll demand that. They'll demand that responsibility is apportioned, and this never happens again. There's going to be some very, very difficult days ahead. Some of the, it's been heartbreaking enough. Listen to the families talking about the people they lost. I think some of the detail that will come out about what happens on the day and how people suffered, and even worse, how easily they could have been saved. It's going to be really shocking. But I do believe that there is a momentum now that can't be stopped. I think it's gone too far, and I believe there will be a resolution. It may still be a long way off. It may still be 7 or 8 years off, but there will be a resolution.
Tony, from a societal point of view, an even broader picture of the whole thing, how alarming is it to see the defensive stance that the police continue to adapt, to see, the machinations of the government over the years? Does it leave you a little bit fearful, that despite all the conciliatory noises that are being made, that there might be more evasion, there might be more kind of obfuscation of facts, there might be more sort of efforts to avoid responsibility?
I think the independent panel has been so exhaustive and so brilliant that I don't think there's anywhere to go with it. Right. I think now what we'll see is it's a cliche and it's perhaps not appropriate here, but the devil will be in the detail for them. Yeah. And then when the full extent of what went on comes out, I think, as I say, I think it will shock a lot of people who believed for so long. Well, and let's face it, we should, in a perfect world, be able to believe what our governments tell us and what our policemen tell us. And it's and I think it will undermine in many ways people's sense of how they can be protected. If people don't take responsibility, and if people aren't held to account for their actions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a question I've asked a couple of people, but I was wondering for yourself as well. maybe it's a subjective thing, but for you, what would constitute some sort of the proper result here in terms of the kind of level of accountability or punitive measures, or what do you think would represent justice?
It's difficult to say. I mean, at the moment, I'm only thinking one step at a time, and we need to deal with the inquest, and then let the law run its course.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think if it is sort of it does transpire that there are criminal actions there, then I think that needs to be addressed and that needs to be dealt with. It's hard to look too far down the line because the course of justice is never quick. But I'm hoping that one day that people will be called to account for what they did, that people will take responsibility for what they did. And I'm not even sure what I want from that. It will be so far distant. I mean, you'll be talking of very old men.
Yeah.
In many ways, if it does come to that, and as I say, we can't prejudice what's going to be said at the inquest. But if it does come to that, I think for them, as much as anything, and even though it will sound ridiculous, the loss of the reputation, the loss of the status will be probably as bad as anything that could ever happen to them. I don't know. Yeah. Do you want vengeance? No, all I want is justice.
Yeah. Well, listen, Tony, that's probably the exact note to end on, and we really appreciate your time this evening. Thanks very much for joining us. And finally, we speak to Charley Maloney of Ireland Walks with the 96. This is a wonderful, wonderful occasion organised by Charley and others and took place on Saturday in the Phoenix Park. Thousands of Irish Reds got to show solidarity with the families of the 96, and Charley tells us a little bit about her own connection to the tragedy and how she feels the bonds between Liverpool and Ireland are as strong as ever. Charley, as an organiser of Ireland Walks with the 96, you'll have seen firsthand the kind of resonance that the tragedy of Hillsborough has, even still, on these shores. Would you mind maybe telling us something about your own connection to the tragedy?
My connection would be, I'm from Anfield. I was 8, showing my age now, aren't I? When Hillsborough happened, and living so close to Anfield, you couldn't not feel it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I went up with my younger brother and laid flowers at the cop. At Anfield, and it was the last of the cop. And I remember, like, my mum was a blue, and I remember sending me for the paper the day after it happening. And like, I obviously seen what was on the front of it, didn't understand it. And my mum saying to me, the flyers were not like that. That would have happened. We didn't do that. And I didn't understand what she meant, to be honest with you. It wasn't until like time went on that I realised what she meant, and it always stuck with me that like she was an Evertonian and she was saying them things that sounds mad, but so yeah. And a girl I went to school with, she lost her uncle. He was only 21, and so it's they say everyone from Liverpool knows someone. It's not like that. People who were there, they don't shout about it. It's it's not that kind of way at all.
Yeah, but by the same token, the community is very much touched by it, and as you say, goes across whatever previous divides there were there. Everybody's kind of united by the tragedy itself.
Sorry, the signal's really bad. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Look, can we just... I was wondering what your own feelings are, Charley, on the way that proceedings are going across the water now with the inquest, and if you're optimistic that there may be actually some kind of justice eventually delivered to the families.
It's 25 years too late, to be honest with you. My feelings of the whole thing, I'm glad that there is the opportunity for the families to be able to let the 96 people rest in peace, because that's what they need.
Yeah.
They need to be let to be rest in peace. Like this has had such a profound effect on not only the 96 people that died at Hillsborough, but you don't have to look at Anne Williams to see the profound effect that it's had on brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. People have died not knowing the truth. So they deserve it. It's a pity that it's took this long. I'm optimistic because it's coming out and people they're saying what we've been saying. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
you know, there's a fella, Neil, he said in the Hillsborough documentary, they picked on the wrong city. And this is, because they thought we were just going to go away and accept it, and it wasn't going to happen. You know, we weren't, and it's one of the reasons that makes me proud to be Scouse, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this walk, to say, look, you know, I'm here, I'm in Ireland, but I'm not on my own. I'm a Liverpool fan, and there's hundreds, thousands out there that feel the way I do. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. You speak about being based in Ireland now. What have you made of the strength of the connection there between your home city and where you're based now in this country?
So, well, I'm based in Kildare, but Dublin to me it's the next best thing to Liverpool. I'll never be as good as Liverpool now. Don't be offended by that, right? Yeah. Let's not. I'll never be Scouse. Yeah. But it's the next best thing. Do you know? You've got the same sense of humour. Some of you are more passionate than us. Like, some of you, I have to go, all right, we'll wind it in now. Do you know? But like, it's there, the passion's there, and the sense of humour's there, but the loyalty, the faith, the belief, the trust, all that, you know, like, it's like when you go on holiday, you always meet someone from Ireland, but when you go on holiday, you always meet someone from Liverpool, and you stick together, and that's just a given. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I love about Dublin itself. I mean, I know I live in Kildare, but I do have more connections with Dublin, and that's how I feel when I go up there, like it's home from home. But I have a better accent.
Yeah, well, clearly you have a better accent. But in relation to maybe Hillsborough itself, have you found that there's been that level of support in Ireland? I know we spoke to Sheila Coleman earlier, and she was talking about that coming over here, she was always surprised that people did keep it kind of alive, maybe in little pockets, but nonetheless they did keep it alive. Has that been your experience as well?
It's difficult for me to say because my time, but obviously in Dublin, in Ireland, has been spent more down in Kildare, and no, it's not down here. They don't, like, to me, people buy the sun. And I'm like, I'm not even going to get in your car, get that paper out the car. Yeah. And they don't understand. And then, they say I would talk about Hillsborough, and they're like, oh, what's that? And, they don't understand. But then people talk about, was it the start of the dance where there was a disco or something with a lot of people killed, Stardust, was it? Yeah. And so to me, I'd be like, oh, I don't really understand that. So we're so suppose it's the same type of, it doesn't affect a lot. It doesn't affect everybody. Liverpool people are really passionate, and it's a little place. So and Dublin's like a little place as well. So it doesn't surprise me that it's more popular just there and not so much in the outskirts. And I don't want to rule. I'm sure there's people who are going to disagree and say, oh well, it's like that down for me in Cork and in Waterford, and then people do exist without a shadow of a doubt because of that support's being shown through this walk. I've had people on Twitter who, by the way, they all think I'm a man. I'm not.
Good to clarify that, Charlie. Yeah.
Yes, I know my name's Charlie, but I'm not a man. Yeah. And the support, and the messages I've had, from Tipperary, from Cork, from people who are in France but they're Irish, and they're like, I wish I was there on the day. It's great to show the Irish people, we're showing it. And obviously they assume I'm Irish as well, which is, that's fine. I don't mind that. But there's a massive amount of support. But personally, firsthand, before this walk, no, I haven't come across that at all. A lot of people down here are Man United fans, so I have a bad time, to be honest with you. I'm having a ball at the minute.
Yeah. That's a worry, all right. That's absolutely a worry. So basically, it's been a very positive experience for you. This whole the Ireland Walks at the 96. It's made me feel like I've made me mark. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely.
I felt I do feel very homesick around a lot of times of the year, and obviously Hillsborough is one of them, and we since forever, since my kids were little, I've made them watch the memorial and explain, obviously they see me getting upset, and they've over the years learned that it's not me crying out of sadness, a lot of it's out of pride. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And they're proud of me doing this. Do you know what I mean? And it's nice to see that they understand what it is and they want to take part in it. And it's funny because they say, like, you know, when they're in school and stuff, and they're like, you know, we're not Irish, we're Scouse, you know, and it's funny, speak for Irish accents now, do you know what I mean? So it's mad, like, when they, things like that. But yeah, it's a lot of, it's been emotional, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie, it has been proper emotional, like, because so many people have come out and gone, oh, you know, there was a fella here, he was here and he was at that match and it was 4 hours before he rang home. And all these stories come out, do you know what I mean? And like I said, people who were there, they don't shout about it. So when things like this come about, it does bring people out the woodwork and they go, oh, I had a cousin or I had someone there, or I always go to the memorial. But they don't make a big song and dance about it. Do you know, they don't put it all over social networking and go, look at me, aren't I great going here? They just do it because they want to do it. And they're the people that matter more to me. Yeah, well, listen, we can only thank you for being part of organising something as excellent as Ireland was with the 96. And thank you for your time this evening, Charlie. You're very good. You're more than welcome. Good luck. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And we leave you with some of the atmosphere from a truly wonderful occasion on Saturday in the Phoenix Park when Ireland walked with the 96. Poetry in motion. The best football team in the land. With hope in your heart, and you never walk. Just take the candle out, there's little justice for the 96 justice.